Welcome everyone. My name is Brandon, and this is the age of the comeback. Boom! Yes. Well, it's a beautiful weekend, the weekend after Independence Day, and it's such a beautiful day outside. Such a beautiful day outside. It's extremely hot in Arizona, but wherever you're at, I'm sure it's a lot nicer than Arizona right now. But yeah, it's super hot outside. However, again, another day to be alive, another day to be breathing is always a beautiful, blessed day. Yeah. All right. So, in relation to Independence Day that just passed, July 4th, today's lesson is going to be about generational curses and bloodlines. Again, the lesson is, and what the episode is about, is generational curses and bloodlines. Now, what does a generational curse mean, Brandon? What the hell are you talking about again? I have no idea what you're speaking of every single time you do these episodes. Come on, break it down to me. I got you. Don't worry. First off, who is this episode for in regards to generational curses? Well, let's think about that. If you are someone that has experienced something similar to your parents or your grandparents, whether it be a cycle of anger or addiction or stubbornness or not being able to show emotion or not being able to give or receive love, or on the harsher side of things, molestation, rape, and the list goes on. If these things have happened to you, or if these things are occurring within your life, then this episode is for you. If you are someone that is repetitively repeating the cycles with dating the wrong men in your life or the wrong woman in your life, this episode is for you. If you are someone that continuously beats yourself up because you've seen your parents do that to themselves, this episode is for you. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of things, yeah? Okay. Now, the previous question before I got into who this episode is for is, what is a generational curse? Let me ask you, what do you think or believe a generational curse is? What do you think it is? Remember, there is no right or wrong answer, and your definition is completely tailored to your experience, okay? Which it is with myself as well. So there is no right or wrong. However, I'd like you to ask yourself that question. What do you think a generational curse is? Hmm. Well, in my experience, a generational curse, also in my experience, called a genetic curse, is where we are experiencing the cellular trauma dating back to our ancestral roots. And we are living and experiencing the same subconscious auto triggers or automatic pilots that our ancestors and our generations prior to us have experienced. So, what that means is, for example, my dad had drinking problems when I was a baby. His dad had drinking problems, and the list can go way back. The generations can go way back to where drinking was heavy as far as an addiction within our family. It was only me that took it a step further and went into hardcore drugs, right? That's neither here nor there. Okay? Right? However, that was my family's thing. That was my family's thing. That was my family's addiction. That was my family's genetic curse. And what that was numbing was underlying pain, an underlying pain, an underlying pain of insecurity, not being worthy, and the list goes on. The list goes on. It could relate to you in however which way, but however, I know for a fact that any addiction, and especially addiction to anger, addiction to just anything, that's another big thing with me too. Is or that's another big thing that my generations and my ancestors must have experienced because I had a tremendously difficult time breaking out of that. And I'll be honest, it pops up at times. However, it's now I have the tools to navigate that, right? So it's becoming emotionally intelligent in order to navigate the automatic pilots via the tools. Okay? And the tools is what this episode's about, right? So again, just a recap on the generational curse. The generational curse is experiencing what the generations prior to you have experienced and have embedded into their cellular being or their cellular intelligence that you are now experiencing or suffering from due to their cellular trauma, their body trauma, their genetic code that has been passed down to you. And that could look in so many different ways. It's unbelievable because these are all of the autopilots and auto triggers that happen within our lives. If somebody raises their voice a little bit too high, fight or flight, right? Or if somebody accuses you of something, defense, boom, right? So it's like there's a lot of things that show up in different ways, and we get to filter out those experiences in order to really dig to the core of where that is coming from. Okay. Now, before I get too ahead of myself, that is what a generational curse is. Okay. Now, ancestral bloodlines. What do you think that means? Before I even get into, because that's really deep. That's really really deep. What I'm about to portray and convey to you. Ancestral bloodlines. What do you think I mean by bloodline? What do you think? Again, it's totally within your experience. Okay, and yeah, what do you think a bloodline is? What do you think it means? It's totally in your experience. I just want to get you thinking. That's all. What do you think a bloodline is? Okay. Well, while you're thinking about that, let me tell you what my experience of what a bloodline is. A bloodline. Whew, man, my heart is pumping just even speaking about this because it's very deep, and I might get a lot of backlash for this again. However, it is my experience of what's happening. Okay, now a bloodline. Obviously, this has to do with your ancestral background. However, it's what your ancestors had to go through. So, for example, with nationalities that have been raped, pillaged, molested, killed. With these, this is just an example. With those ancestral backgrounds, those experiences have never been traumatically healed due to the imprint that it created throughout time. And it may lessen over a period of time. However, the emotion doesn't. So the severity of the action may lessen over time, but the emotion that's tied with it doesn't. So, for example, if your ancestors were in villages that got raped, molested, killed, pillaged, and now you're in your current place now, right? You may have experienced something along the lines of sexual abuse, as far as rape, molestation, and not to take anything away from that, not to take anything away from that. I'm completely hands up here, okay? Just that with that type of bloodline, the emotion never leaves. So you may not have been killed, or your village or your family hasn't been murdered or anything of that nature. However, the action that may have happened, even even when it comes to molestation, it may cause the emotion of seeing yourself as used, seeing as yourself as not worthy of love, seeing yourself as someone that has many sexual partners, or has, or just has, or feels that way. Again, that may not even be true that you've had many sexual partners. It's just the emotion has never left. The emotion did not leave from your ancestors feeling that way. The emotion did not leave. And this is what a bloodline is the emotions that carry with you. It's the emotions that carry with you. And back in our ancestors' times, times back then, it was territorial. This was normal stuff. As horrible as it may sound and seem, this was normal to them, so it wasn't considered wrong at the time. However, what that has caused in the present day and age is cellular trauma. It's caused severe emotional damage to where we look at ourselves as incongruent with ourselves, incongruent with the person that we want to be, and incongruent with the person that we want to become because of our bloodlines bullshit. because of our generational curses. And that's how the bloodline relates to generational curses. Because here's the thing about generational curses, right? Generational curses, they can happen at any time within like your ancestors and your generations before you's time. Like for example, my dad could have gotten heavy into drinking. It didn't even have to be his father that was heavy into drinking. It could have started from my dad. Then because I experienced that and because I have his genetic code, I had a tough time. I had a tough time with alcohol. I had such a tough time with alcohol that I escalated that into hardcore drugs, right? So it's like generational curse can happen with any time between the entire genetic line of you. It can happen at any time. However, a bloodline genetic curse that's happened from the beginning, from the very beginning. Do you understand what you're battling now? A bloodline genetic curse, not just a regular genetic curse, a bloodline genetic curse. Do you understand what you are battling here? Do you understand? If you really sit down and think about it and you close your eyes, do you understand what it is that you're facing? And I don't say this to make it seem like it's impossible. I say this in order to let you know that your bloodline chose you. Your bloodline chose, wow, I just got chills. Your bloodline chose you to break the genetic and generational curses that they unfortunately had to go through. Your bloodline chose you. And if you don't break it, guess who's going to have to break it? Guess who's going to have the liability of breaking the bloodline's generational curses? Your kids. Your kids. If you don't step up now, your kids are going to suffer, man. Because bloodline generational curses are so much deeper than just regular generational curses. Think about it. Now, how to break generational curses, how to break the bloodline's generational curses. Well, again, before I could even get into that topic, I would like to ask you that question. What do you think that looks like? What do you think that, what do you think that, yeah, what do you think that looks like? How do you portray that? How do you break a generational curse? Especially something as deep as a bloodline generational curse. What do you think? Well, generational curse, let me tell you right now, it's easy. A regular one, it's easy. Okay? It's siphoning through your experiences and just being able to be vulnerable with yourself. Okay? Sitting down in a quiet place, having somebody to speak to, knowing that the individual that you're speaking to, you wouldn't mind releasing tears of pain, screaming, any type of catharsis method that you have, and just being able to speak and siphon through your experiences your individual experiences, and where these autopilots and where all of these auto triggers come from. For example, drinking, or yeah, let's stick with drinking. So with me drinking, um, where that happened with me was I actually started at the age my dad did, and that was 15, drinking. You see, and that's where that generational curse continued on because nobody stopped me. Nobody stopped me because my parents thought it was okay because they did it at that age, right? That they let me do it. And what did that lead into? That led into astronomical amounts of an addiction personality of an addiction personality to where I took it to another level, really, 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 really high level. An addiction to money. I had an addiction to escorts. I had an addiction to cocaine. I had an addiction to alcohol. I had an addiction to partying. It just, you see like how that escalates if you are not the one to stop it, because it could just be a frequency like this where my dad was right here with alcohol, and then since he passed it to me, I took it above and beyond here, and now that I stopped doing that, now my offspring and now my kids, they're going to be back down here. However, I'm looking to break that cycle. I'm looking to break that cycle. But because now I know where it came from, okay, cool. Now, what is the emotion that's tied with it? Now, I know that my grandfather, my dad's dad, he drank because he was numbing some really internal pain of unworthiness and abandonment and tons and tons of anger. And he was suppressing a lot through alcohol. And what did my dad do? He did the same thing. My dad did the same thing. And what did I do? I did the same thing. So it's not just the action, guys, it's the emotion that's tied with it. What exactly are you hiding? What exactly are you burying? What exactly are you suppressing? You understand? So now, once you're aligned with seeing what does not work within your life, seeing what does not work within your life through just observing and becoming analytical about those experiences that have shaped that perception of those generational curses. Now that you know what is not working in your life, what do you think is going to work? And that's a question for you to answer. That's a question for you to answer. If you know that your generations prior to you had issues with anger, alcohol, sex, lust, um, drugs, and the list goes on. If you know that the generations prior to you had these generational curses, okay, and you're seeing these within yourself, how to break a generational curse, a regular generational curse, is for you to become responsible and see what's not working in your life. See what's not working in your life and shift to what's working in your life. And that's something that you get to answer. It's not going to be me. I'm not going to tell you over this episode. I don't know you. Right? To be quite fair and honest, I may or may not know you. And even if I do know you, I don't know your experiences. So you get to answer, what do you think will work within your life? And that takes trial and error. That takes getting out of the comfort zone, hanging out with new people, just becoming aligned with the vision self of you, bringing your vision to the present in order for you to start getting congruent with those actions instead of being congruent with the actions of the generations prior to you. And let that shit go, man. And we're just speaking about regular generational curses. Let's jump into bloodline generational curses that go way back to the beginning of your bloodline. Let's talk about that for a sec. Do you know how to break that? Again, a question for you. Where do you even think to start with that? How to break a bloodline generational curse is to go back in time by asking the generations prior to you what their experience was of what happened to them. Ask your mom about sexual abuse. Ask your dad about domestic violence. Ask your mom about domestic violence. Then, if your grandparents are alive, ask them and trace it back to as far back as you can in order for you to realize, in order for you to siphon through all of those experiences, not just from you, because the eyes that you look out of is the eyes that your ancestors have looked out of. You have their genetic code. The eyes that you look out of are the eyes that your bloodline has looked out of. So now, how do you break a bloodline genetic curse or generational curse? And that is to go as far back as you can and siphon through the experiences of your mom, your dad, your grandparents, and even your great-grandparents if they're still alive. Go back, because how to break a bloodline generational curse is to revisit the past and heal it in the past so it can show up in the present. So the trauma that your great-grandparents went through, you get to forgive and heal in that space. Even if you think it has nothing to do with you. Yes, it does. Because you are suffering because of it. You get to go back in time to your great-grandparents' time, and whatever trauma that they experienced, you get to heal that within yourself. That way it shows up in the present for you. That's how to break a bloodline generational curse. So if your great-grandparents suffered slavery, anger, molestation, rape, domestic violence, so on and so forth, you get to, as the chosen one of your bloodline, gets to go back into that space and forgive, let go, heal, and from there, that effort and that energy of healed energy will show up in your present by you revisiting the past and healing what had to be done in the past for it to show up in the present. Whew! Powerful. Powerful. Now, I know I've been speaking for a while now. I'll make the story time very, very short. This is a shout out to all Caribbean Indians, right, in respect to Independence Day in America, July 4th. My dad sent me a very powerful article on Facebook actually, and it was about how Indians from India, they came from India, uh, and they primarily became indentured slaves to the same people that, or the same slave masters that forcefully captured slaves in Africa. So with Indians, it was a little bit different because we had an option in order to either go or stay. But the caste system in India back in the 1800s had was terrible. It was either you were at the top of the top or middle class, or you were an untouchable, right? Like how we learned in school. And slave masters, they gave Indians an option whether to come or whether to go, become indentured slaves. Now, with that being the case, my ancestors, the Indians out of India, they had no idea what they were getting into. First off, they were getting the beating the shit out of from just Indians because of untouchables or middle class, or just very unfair treatment, because no matter how smart you are, no matter how educated you are, if somebody labels you as such, you are that for the rest of your life. So they were getting treated poorly in India. Now, they had an option. They had an option that the slave masters, they gave them. And that was, you either come or you go. And what did they do? They went. They had the courage to see what was happening to them in India, the poor living conditions, the death all around them, getting their ass beat every day, so on and so forth. And it may have been even from the slave masters. I don't know. I don't know. However, they went into blind territory. They had the courage to go blindfolded onto a ship in the 1800s in order to land into the South American jungles of Guyana, or the Caribbean, Trinidad. That's where my mom's from. My dad's from Guyana. Let's talk about Guyana for now, though. So they had the courage to go, not knowing if that they were going to get killed or not. They had the courage to go and land in one of South America's jungles of Guyana to become an indentured slave. However, that situation was better than the situation that they were in India. They took a risk for their bloodline in order for their bloodline to succeed, in order for their bloodline to grow. I feel my ancestors through me right now. It's crazy. They took a risk in order for my family, oh man. If it wasn't the risk that my ancestors took, I would not be here today. And they took a huge sacrifice, not knowing if they were going to get killed or raped or whatever. They did not know what the hell they were getting into when going aboard that ship. They did not know. And the courage it takes to explore the unknown is the only place that growth will happen. Let me say that again. The courage to explore the unknown is the only place that growth will happen. And it did. And it did. My dad's ancestors prior to him, or generations prior to him, I'm sure are so proud of my dad just as much as I am for him making it to the United States, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Us Caribbean Indians, we are brave, we are courageous because of our ancestral bloodline. Because of our ancestral bloodline, we are brave and we are courageous. Because who the fuck would do that, man? Go onto a ship where they have no idea what's gonna happen. Who would do that voluntarily? And then that's where high risk equals high reward. I think back to my ancestors about, wow, the courage that they have. My dad definitely has. I have it. And it's just been such a powerful experience just being able to feel my ancestors through me. And my dad making it to America, land of the free and home of the brave, where I was born, is a testament of, if my ancestors didn't make the move that they did, we wouldn't be here. And I know that they're looking, oh man, I know that they're looking down on my father, on my grandfather in heaven, on me, and they are so proud of us taking the actions and the steps towards breaking the bloodlines, generational curses. They are so happy for us to find our independence within this country. And I could go on and on. And I know that they're proud of us. I know that they're proud of us. Once again, your bloodline chooses you. Who are you going to be in order to show up for them? So lesson recap. Okay. The lesson recap, I'll make this fast. So the lesson recap, what a generational curse is. Okay. A regular generational curse is where within any portion of your genetic code or with any portion of your timeline or your ancestors' timeline, a generational curse could have popped up. And a generational curse can look like anger, it could look like lust, it could look like rape, it could look like molestation, it could look like pain, it could look like domestic violence, it could look like choosing incompatible matches for you as far as men and women are concerned. It can look like settling. It can look like a myriad of different things. The list goes on. However, from those traumatic experiences that your ancestral line or just at any time when that event occurred, it creates cellular memory, thus cellular trauma. And by that genetic code being passed on generation to generation, you now have it. Congratulations though, because there is a way to break it. And with a regular generational curse, that is just siphoning within the experiences within you. Generational curse, a regular one, is just siphoning within the experiences within you. So where does my automatic defense come from? Where does my walls come from? Where does my fight or flight come from? Where does my anger come from? Where does my heavy heart come from? Where does my depression come from? Where does my sadness comes from? Where does my viewpoint of me looking at myself as a piece of meat come from? Where do these things come from? And that only happens within your experience. And you get to siphon through your experiences that has happened from childhood all the way up in order for you to break that generational curse. Because it's definitely been passed down from your generations beyond you. However, that's the easy way on how to break that. Okay, now that you've identified the past experiences where they source from, now it's getting congruent with the vision self, what you see for your future, getting congruent with the actions of that, what will work in your life, compared to staying congruent with the actions of the generations of the past. That's how you break it. So now a quick recap on bloodline generational curses. Bloodline generational curses go a lot deeper than just regular generational curses. The generational curses, again, they can happen at any time of the timeline in between the source of your bloodline all the way up to where you are in the present. It could have happened any time where the cells have indoctrinated that cellular trauma from an experience that your ancestors had. So that's the difference between a regular generational curse, and now what a bloodline generational curse is. The bloodline generational curse is where these are the emotions and the actions that have created cellular trauma from the beginning of your bloodline, from the very source of things. So back in those days where the bloodline was really created, what was happening back then? It was a very territorial world. It was full of rape, molestation, taking over villages, pillaging, killing, murdering, so on and so forth. These actions back in the past, it may not reflect so heavily in the present. However, the emotions of those actions that happened at the source of our bloodlines can have a detrimental effect on the experiences you experience now in the present. For example, if those things have happened to your bloodline, which chances are it may very well have been, through your genetic time and through your genetic code and through your ancestors' experiences, they carry that emotion of that happening to them still, to where it actually brings that experience back into real life. You actually generate that experience because of the energy you give off from the source of it all, the source of the bloodline. See, so now it's difficult now. It's way, way, way harder to break that bloodline generational curse because how many ancestors have you had before you? How many generations have you had before you? You see? So, how to break a bloodline generational curse is to not actually siphon through your experiences. It's to siphon through your parents, your grandparents, and your great grandparents. And if you could go back even further, go back as far as you can. And this is what I call revisiting the past. Revisiting that time where the cellular trauma happened, and from there, healing, forgiving, and cleaning that space in the past within your generation's space. So your parents' space, within your grandparents' space, within your great grandparents' space, within your great great grandparents' space, cleaning that space in order for it to show up as clean space within you in the present. And don't get it twisted that, oh, that shit didn't happen to me. Why should I revisit their past? Well, it is affecting you. It is affecting you because you have the genetic code. Your body and your cells remember that happened to your great 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 grandparents. You have their genetic code. So yes, it does involve you. And here's the thing. Without them, there wouldn't be a you. There are no mistakes, and your bloodline has chosen you. Your bloodline has chosen you to stand up and to show up for them. Your bloodline has chose you to stand up and break the generational curses that they have created, to heal that cellular trauma in order for you to become the best version of yourself, to live the vision that you want to create for yourself, your purpose, your love, your life. It's up to you now. Your bloodline chose you. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to heal? Or are you going to keep repeating generational trauma over and over and over again? Because if you don't heal here in the present, guess what's going to happen? If you don't break these generational curses now, here in the present, guess what's going to happen? Your kids are going to have to deal with it. If you don't heal from those generational curses, those genetic curses now, in the present, guess what's going to happen? Your kids are going to have to deal with it. The rest of your bloodline beyond you is going to have to deal with it. You want your bloodline to succeed? Do what they have called you to do. Stand up, break the curses, stand up and show up for them. Be proud of who you are and move forward. Woo! Ah! Powerful! Alright guys, well, that was it. I mean, super powerful episode about generational curses and bloodlines. It spoke a lot to me. It was it was powerful episode. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channels. Please listen to me on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I have channels on YouTube. I have a channel on TikTok. I have a channel on Instagram, and I have a channel on Facebook. So please like, share, and subscribe. Just look up The Age of the Comeback, and support. Support in spreading news of emotional intelligence and leadership. Thank you everyone for watching. It's been a huge blessing. Happy belated Independence Day, July 4th, and I'll see you around next time. This is the age of the comeback. Ah. One, two, three. Hi everyone, my name is Brandon. Welcome, welcome. I'll edit that out. Nervous, nervous. Welcome. In relation to Independence Day that just passed, July 4th, in relation to in, and the list goes on. Those are three huge ones. The first reason is just a myriad of different cycles. Second one is how those cycles affect you, and if you are continuously repeating those behaviors subconsciously. This episode's for you. Okay? Now, moving forward here. Speaking too much. let's close the door. Come on, take this. Okay. I love you. Okay. So now